Today we are talking about thrusters, the favorite movement, the devil's work. We're going to be breaking down what the thruster is, how we're probably going to see the thruster coming up soon, how to become better at the thruster, how to become better at the thruster over time, and then certain limitations that we might need to work around for individuals. Our thruster is a front squat into a push press, but we want to make sure that we're not separating these movements too much and we're actually trying to merge them together as much as possible. We essentially want to use as much of the front squat energy as we can to complete the push press element. So we're trying to make this much more of a leg movement than we are an arm movement. So once that barbell is sitting in that front rack, we're going to be performing a full squat and then using those legs to take that bar overhead. Now, when it's light and we haven't got many reps to do, the movement's fine. But when it starts getting a little bit heavier or we've got some fatigue going on, this movement is a real killer. So it's really important that we get the finer details down, we understand how we can make ourselves work better with this movement, and we can get better scores for our workouts. Okay, so the first thing that we want to avoid is early arm engagement. Like I said at the start, we want to be using our legs to complete this movement as much as possible. So what we don't want to do is essentially come out of our squat and before we're there, start pressing up on the bar. So that's going to look like this if we put it all together. So you can see just before I'm standing up out of the squat, I'm starting to press and then take that bar overhead. That's going to be a really inefficient use of our energy. We really want to use our legs, keep the bar across the shoulders as long as possible, finish exploding with our legs. We're almost trying to throw it up with our legs and then just finish with the arms in that top position. So we're going to practice that movement. Think about using the arms as late as possible. So that is our first and probably most important tip. Use the legs as much as you can. So to make our thrusters even more efficient, we need to find out what's our most effective squat stance. And it's going to look slightly different for everyone. We don't just want to say simply that everyone should squat like this or everyone should squat like this. It's going to look slightly different. The main thing is that you need to find what's most comfortable for you and you keep these overarching themes. The first one is that you stay flat-footed the entire time and that center of balance stays over the middle of the feet. We don't want to be sitting our weight too far back in the heels and we don't want to be sitting our weight too far forward in the toes. So that's number one. Number two, we're squatting as low as we can maintain a flat back position. So flat feet for one, comfortable stance, it's different for everyone, and we're sitting as low as we can maintain a flat back. I'm not going all the way down into this sort of relaxed position. I want to stay up a bit, so I've got a tight back position, my feet are flat, and I can hold this. That is the depth. If you can go this low and maintain that, that's absolutely fine. If you can go lower, also fine. We don't want to be compensating ourselves because we're trying to adhere to something else. So make sure you stay in your safety zone of ability and you're going to be able to perform thrusters for longer and you're going to adapt to them quicker and safer over time. So the next thing we're going to talk about is breathing during the thrusters. As a general rule of thumb, our thrusters are coming up in an environment where there's lots of other things going on. Our heart rate's going to be jacked up, we're going to be doing other movements. So we want to make sure we try to settle as much as possible. As much as this movement is going to jack up our heart rate more, we want to try to keep it down as much as possible. And a lot of that's going to come down to regulating our breathing. We want to create a rhythm with the reps where our body can start to learn when it's getting its next breath of air. So for me, I like to hold my breath on the way down and then exhale at the top. So once that thruster's in the front rack, I'm going to hold, breathe. So I'm breathing out at the top, hold in here. So whilst that might be a slightly slower breathing cadence than you're used to, it's going to have some rhythm so your body knows when it's getting its next bit of oxygen coming in. Another tip which is really important, It links into our individual squat position. It's setting ourselves up for the movement. So whilst you can perform a squat clean or a power clean, it's important that we get that squat stance first. If you know, for example, if you have a slightly wider squat and you perform a power clean and you keep your feet narrow, you're gonna have to adjust that. Likewise, if you have a slightly narrower squat, but you lift the bar up and your feet end up wide, you're gonna have to adjust it. So make sure before the start of the rep, your feet are in the most comfortable position for you to squat in. What we don't want to see is, for example, you lifting the bar up from the ground, going straight in where your feet might be too narrow, and then trying to hit those reps. You're gonna have to readjust at some point, and you're gonna be using precious energy that you don't want to waste. So from the ground, if we're gonna power clean or full clean, make sure you set those feet up, and then you can start going. So as we're trying to create a leg dominant movement for the thruster, even though it's going overhead, it's really important that we understand how we're going to improve that. Other than our ability to breathe and our fitness for them, taking our leg strength up is going to have a good translation to that as well, because relatively, the weight is going to feel lighter and lighter. Now you can't just get stronger and improve your thrusters, you do need the fitness element as well, but the strength is going to be a huge help. So making sure that we're seeing progress in things like our front squats and back squats, and we're doing it with the correct foot stance, which is relative to us. We see that strength going through the roof, we're going to see our thrusters start to improve with it. Thanks for joining us today in our educational video about thrusters. Remember all of the points that we need. We need to get our individual squat honed in. We need to keep our feet flat with the even weight balance. We need to keep our back flat. Use our legs as much as possible. Try and regulate our breathing with the repetitions. Improve our strength over time, improve our fitness. All of this can come together to make thrusters an absolute killer movement that you no longer dread. This is Head Coach Mike from CrossFit Putney. I'll see you another time. Action.